Welcome to the 2024 Puzzle Advent Calendar. So this is a collaboration between various YouTubers and puzzle designers to show off new puzzles every day throughout the month of December. So this is the Monolith, and I'll be telling you more about it later, but first, this collaboration is organized by Cubes Made Easy, and tomorrow there will be a new video by Puzzle Guy, so please go and subscribe so you don't miss it. He'll be showing off a puzzle designed by Core Mods. So I'm going to start this video with a bit of a slideshow presentation of various puzzles that are deep cut. They share a property with the Monolith, and I don't include every deep cut puzzle, but it's a very wide selection. I hope you enjoy the video. What we have here, I'm calling the Monolith. No real particular reason for the name other than it sounded appropriate, and it's the only one that really seemed to fit. So I want to tell you a little bit about this. It's a deep cut puzzle, and appropriately for the day 16, it has 16 deep cuts. It should look quite familiar because it's very closely related. In fact, it has all the cuts of the behemoth that was originally built by Ben Streeter. What's new is that this also implements all the cuts of the Scube. So if you look at the Scube here, it's corner turning, and let's see where there's a cube here. So you see these 4 corners, and then there are another 4 down here. When you hold it like this, it's a cube, and you can see that that cut lines up with that cut. So this implements all the cuts of the behemoth and all the cuts of the Scube, giving 16 deep cuts. It also is, since it's the intersection between 2 simple deep cut puzzles, it is also simple deep cut. Now that's not always true, but in this case it is simple deep cut. Now, as far as implementing the mechanism, before I get into turning it, there are some challenges. There's a 4-fold, I guess, intersection here. There are 4 cuts that all come through the same point. Those sorts of things lead to a lot of instability if you're not careful, and there's 12 of them. So there's 12 of those 4-fold intersections and 24 3-fold intersections. If you're not careful with the design, you can't just take these cuts and make a rail mechanism and expect it to work. There were some tricks that I used to make sure that it stays stable. So it's like I don't need to have like a slight turn here lead to some derailing. Now, it can derail, it does derail, but it's very playable, and we'll actually do an algorithm or two on this. So, what should we do next? Let's talk about and let's do an algorithm. Let's see how it works. So the skewb cuts, these skewb cuts work very well, and apologies, I know it's quite loud. These skewb cuts work very well. In fact, too well, because there are behemoth cuts that are right next to it that it wants to turn the skewb cut if you're not careful. So, of course, alignment is a challenge here, but once it's aligned and you hug both sides, it turns just fine. Of course, some catchiness. Okay. So there's a few of the turns. Sometimes getting a turn started is a little tricky, but once you get it started, it goes. So, let's talk about the interactions between the cuts. So, you're never going to have a behemoth part of the cut directly next to a skewb part of the cut. This is both due to geometry, but also due to the mechanism. The mechanism for the skewb and the mechanism for the behemoth are happening in different layers of the puzzle. The skewb mechanism is actually deeper. But just on a geometry side, the angles for the skewb, between skewb and behemoth, just don't match anything that would allow you to scramble it in that way. So let me mention some of the scrambling. So what's new here? To what degree do these actually interact? Because a priori it may just be like, okay, you can scramble it like a skewb, and then you can scramble it like a behemoth, but is there kind of a back and forth, or what degree do they interact? So for the behemoth, all of its turns are jumbling only. There's no stop here that prevents jumbling. There are algorithms that will return it to its shape, but scrambled. But actually, I don't know any algorithms that return the behemoth to its shape and scrambles these edges. I have not found any. It may not be possible. This is still really hard to analyze. I think there are some really interesting open questions about it. This puzzle, the Monolith, is absolutely entirely scramblable. You can keep it in its solved shape, and all the parts definitely scramble. There are a handful of algorithms that I found on the behemoth that apply to this puzzle that tells me exactly what can and can't scramble, and this definitely, or at least hints at what maybe can't scramble. This definitely scrambles. As you see, we have 4 non-jumbling axes, 4 non-jumbling cuts, which opens up a lot of possibilities. So let me mention the interactions. There's a really fascinating interaction where the skewb only allows 120 degree turns. So there's a 100 degree turn. Instead, I could do a 60 degree turn. This is jumbling for a skewb, but it opens up, so a skewb wouldn't be able to make any turns from here, but the behemoth has cuts that do line up. So we actually introduce fractional angle turns of a skewb naturally into this geometry. And let's see how this actually interplays. It's somewhat of a dead end here, but if we do a behemoth turn, okay, let's get it lined up. Of course, it's catchy at first until we get, there's so many cuts that want to turn, especially in the solved state. Okay, let's get that lined up. Let's get, oh my goodness, so many other cuts want to turn. Okay, let's do a turn like this. Where's the good stop? There's the stop. Okay, that's a behemoth turn. Now we have a skewb turn, like that. Now let's do a behemoth turn, like so. Let's do that. A another behemoth turn, a cube turn, and nope, other turns want to happen along the way, and a behemoth turn returns it to its shape, and this is an algorithm that goes between behemoth and scube turns back and forth. One of the scube turns is actually in a 180-degree turn, so it's even a fractional turn for the scube. Now let's see if I hopefully I haven't forgotten how to restore this. But the two different puzzles here, the scube and the behemoth, and their relative geometries are definitely interacting in some interesting ways. Okay, that wanted to turn. I think I remember how to return this. Oh, again, it works really well once you start a turn, but a lot of turns want to happen at many different stops, and so it can, like, I want to turn it this way, and then one piece wants to turn a different way, and it'll get a little locked up. Okay. Why do these two geometries mix? Let's talk about that. These two geometries, so the geometry for the behemoth, this really isn't the natural shape for the behemoth. The natural shape is the triacus tetrahedron. So I'll try to mix in a picture of a triacus tetrahedron. This is a face-turning triacus tetrahedron. It has 12 faces, which gives you 12 cuts. But a scube is a corner-turning or a face-turning tetrahedron. So a scube is also a corner-turning triacus tetrahedron. Those axes actually perfectly align. This means that the monolith is a face-turning and a corner-turning triacus tetrahedron. I think that's part of the reason for why these geometries, these two axis systems work together. So let me mention some of the features. One feature, or it's not a feature, it's a bug. One bug is for stability. The way these have to be designed, mainly for these fourfold intersections. Due to stability, there are strictly internal parts. I have a few of them here, actually. Here's one. Let me see if I can get a good focus on that. Here's one internal part. You can see the two different layers to the mechanism. It comes down to about 2 millimeters. Actually, no, that's almost a millimeter thick. But these strictly internal parts can get replaced by external parts and can lead to some internal blocking. So a cut that looks viable on the outside may not actually be viable. So let's go into one of those algorithms, or one of those situations. And I'll do it with an algorithm that I did find on the behemoth. Let's get that lined up. Let's see if I remember the algorithm. Actually, I need this here. Of course, on camera, I'm going to screw something with the algorithm. Oh, come on. Did I start this correctly? Of course, I'm going to screw up the algorithm on video. Let me try and do it. Okay, line up. Okay, the scube turns really want to turn, and they kind of get in the way. There we go. Okay. What are you catching on? No, not there. There we go. Once it begins to jumble, it does not lock up as much because it's restricted a lot more. So you can see here, it's catchy, it's still catchy, but not as bad. Okay, then we need to do this, and here we go. This is an algorithm that just used behemoth moves, and it moves around several pieces, but it slightly jumbles the puzzle with these edges. So let's take a look at this skewb cut here, going all the way around. There's not necessarily anything blocking this, but those pedal pieces go right to the corner. Those pedal pieces block that turn. Part of their mechanism goes into the other side and replaces an internal part and blocks the mechanism. So that doesn't work. But some of these, and there's one of them that I'm going to struggle to find right now. One of them works. One of those skewb turns, oh, there it is. So you can see it's got this situation here, but this skewb turn works. Now, one of the things that happens here is you can make a turn like this that roughly restores the shape. It moves this around. I mean, it somewhat restores the shape. And you can form commutators between the behemoth algorithms and skewb moves, and you end up with commutators that move these pieces around and restore the shape. I mean, you can do it with just skewb moves, but this is an example where you have some internal blocking and some algorithms that mix the algorithms for the behemoth and turns for the skewb. So there is some internal blocking, but it can't be too bad. The internal blocking shouldn't be too bad because there aren't that many strictly internal parts. There are a handful of internal parts here. There's an internal part here, just one, and internal parts for some of the corners. That's it. The strictly internal parts occur in groups of 3 here and groups of 1 right there. So it's not like the internal parts are going to interlock and form some complicated thing that blocks it up. They're all quite scattered around, and it shouldn't jumble too bad. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but it certainly has some interesting features. So I'll just say one bit about the mechanism. We can bring some of these pieces back. You can see again there are 2 different layers to the mechanism. It's coreless, and it has 2 different rail mechanisms occurring at different depths, and that's really how this is made. So we can bring some of these internal parts. So let's take a look at these. These are the only 3 internal parts, 3 types that occur, and they are the source of some of the internal blocking, but again, for stability they are completely unavoidable. But this is the Monolith. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the next YouTuber or puzzle guy for tomorrow's video, and have a Merry Christmas.